So Donald Trump has now signed an executive order that if you burn a flag, you will get a year in jail. Why? Because Donald Trump does not like free speech. Why? Because MAGA does not understand the First Amendment. They do not understand the Constitution. So I'm sure they'll sit back and flex at this one and think that Donald Trump has done something good. But what he's actually done is went against the First Amendment. And this was supposed to be the president that brought back free speech. Actually, the only thing that MAGA ever wanted him to bring back was their ability to be racist on Facebook. That's pretty much all they wanted. But I'm going to read you just a little bit of an article here from the USA Today. It says Donald Trump signed an executive order on August 25th seeking to penalize anyone who burns a flag. Although courts have long upheld the practice as legitimate expression under the First Amendment, the order aims to prosecute people who burn flags associated with other violence, such as inciting a riot, Trump said. If you burn a flag, you get a year in jail, Trump told reporters. You will see flag burning stop immediately. Now, the First Amendment protects speech and peaceful protest. The Supreme Court ruled in 1989 in a 5-4 decision that burning a flag itself is a form of political expression and it isn't illegal. And folks, I can actually remember when that whole debate was being had, and I remember seeing on TV some protesters who was burning a flag and jumping up and down on it. And I remember seeing that as a kid and being extremely upset because the first person that went through my mind when I saw that was my grandfather. My grandfather was a lifelong Republican, lifelong Christian, and a World War II veteran. His younger brother served in Korea. I had another uncle that served in Vietnam. So when I was growing up, I was taught to be very respectful of the flag and very respectful of the military. And that's just the way that I was raised. So when I saw that type of imagery, I got really upset. And I said to myself, this has to upset my grandfather, so I'm going to go have a talk with him about it. And I remember walking into his room, like, hey, did you see what was on TV? Did you see these people burning the flag? And I said, these people ought to go to jail. They ought to arrest those people for that. And my grandpa said, well, I don't like flag burning, but no, they shouldn't go to jail for it. They do have a right to do it. And I said, how's that possible? How do they have a right to do it? And he started explaining to me the First Amendment and freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And he said, you know what? He said, I wouldn't want to see you burn a flag, and I don't believe in burning the flag, but people have a right to do it. We went into these countries to spread democracy, to make it to where people could speak up against their own government and their own leaders. And so as much as I don't like seeing that, that is part of freedom of expression and freedom of speech. And so, no, those people shouldn't go to jail. And I just remember thinking as a kid, I'm like, I'm talking to a World War II veteran, someone who almost didn't make it back. Very easily could have been one of the many that didn't make it home. And here he is saying that. Now, I know he didn't enjoy seeing the flag get burned, but he understood what the First Amendment was about, and he understood what freedom of speech was about, and he understood dictators because he had went to war against them. And MAGA will get out here and they'll flex at this and they'll think that this is something good, but in reality, it's not. That's why anytime when we've come on up through history, anytime, like when Colin Kaepernick was taking the knee and everybody where I live was like, I'm going to, stand for the flag and kneel for the cross and all that, I would just automatically go back to that conversation I had with my grandfather. And I would say to myself, whether you agree with it or not, he has a right to protest. He doesn't have to stand for it. That's the whole point of it. The whole point is you don't have to, you're free not to. That's what was supposed to really, truly make us great. Not forced patriotism. If you have to force someone to stand for the flag, that's not patriotic. And if you have to force someone to be patriotic, that's not patriotic. They completely missed the whole meaning of this. They completely missed it all because they don't care about free speech. And what it really boils down to also is whatever Donald Trump does, they're going to get behind it and cheer it because they want to see him on the libs. And they'll try to take this down and paint it. See, they're for flag burning. Oh, Brando, he's for flag burning. No, I would never burn a flag myself. That's not something that I would do. But if there was someone next to me at a protest doing it in protest to our government and in protest to the things Donald Trump was doing, I'm not going to shout that person down for doing it. That's their First Amendment right. And I understand also that I have to see and tolerate a lot of things in this world that I don't want to put up with in order to have freedom of speech. I walk past stuff all the time that I don't like seeing, but I keep walking because those people have freedom of speech. Those people have freedom of expression. I see videos. I listen to music. I see people on TV all the time saying things I completely disagree with. And I don't get upset about it. I just go on with my day because they have freedom of speech. But what MAGA did was they completely bastardized and hijacked the free speech argument. And that's what got us to the point we're at today. They completely hijacked that argument. Whenever they were fact-checked or whenever culture pushed back on the bigoted, racist shit they were saying, they confused that with, you're trying to take away my free speech. And I always said, no one's trying to take away your free speech, but if you say the N-word and someone doesn't want to do business with you anymore, that's not them taking away your First Amendment right to say the N-word. That's them not wanting to be associated with you for saying it. And so many times we would see people get fired or kicked off of a platform for saying something racist or saying something that the company themselves didn't agree with, and then people would confuse that and go, oh, they're against the First Amendment. No, you're free to say whatever you want to say, but someone else doesn't have to be associated with it if they don't want to be. So if you're Hank Williams Jr. and you make a comment about Barack Obama being Hitler, you're free to say that all day long. And Monday Night Football is free to say, I don't want to be associated with you if that's the kind of comment that you're going to make. So we have seen a lot of cultural pushback on things that MAGA said, and then they twisted that to, oh, you're trying to take away our free speech. And meanwhile, Donald Trump comes in and just straight up assaults free speech, and they're happy. Why? Because it's always been about revenge. I said Donald Trump's presidency will be a revenge presidency. But what you got to understand, it's not just him who wants revenge. All of MAGA wants revenge because they are the party of victimhood, and they're the party that has been poor, pitiful me for the last 4 years, and they want everything to be about them. So they want to be able to say anything they want to say completely unchecked. That's what they want. They want to be able to go out there and say anything completely unchecked, and then if someone disagrees with them, shut that restaurant down, shut that place of business down, shut that American company down, and arrest that protester for speaking up against our leader. But if Kid Rock wants to cut a hole in a flag and wear it for a poncho, they're perfectly okay with that. Again, they don't care about the flag. Any of these issues that MAGA is getting upset about, always understand, if they're talking about Epstein, they're not upset over the victims. They're upset because they didn't want to see the victims get justice. They wanted to see Democrats get owned. That's all it was. And they don't care about the flag either. They don't care about freedom of speech either. They just want to see a liberal get owned. That's all it is to them. They're just dumb, ignorant people, stupid people, who are very cruel too. So that's a pretty bad combo right there, to have all those things going for you. And they want to get out there and own us. Anything that they think upsets us, they're for. So Donald Trump can put the guard on the streets. He can now make it a penalty to burn the flag. You can go to jail for a year if you do that. They'll sit back and flex. And meanwhile, he pardoned the violent criminals on January 6th, and yeah, I'll always bring that up. He pardoned those violent criminals because they couldn't accept the results of an election and because they broke into our Capitol and beat police officers over the head. Those people got a pardon. But if someone burns a flag in protest of Donald Trump, which is their First Amendment right to do so, oh, yeah, well, you get to go to jail for a year. That's the hypocrisy. That's the authoritarian. That's the dictator that we now live under.